So to start with, this is a typical project life cycle. I mean, obviously there are going to be a lot of variations on this. Pretty much every company has its own specific areas, but by and large they're all going to come down to the same basic things. So that first off, we have the idea. We might choose to be buying into a particular thing. We might choose to have bought into a particular area of acreage, or that we're going to commit to a particular development. So we get into it. Then we start saying, well, okay, how are we going to exploit this? How are we going to be able to achieve what we want to achieve within the business? So there may be a number of particular concepts available to us. We may be, I don't know, talking about generating power. Are we going to do it via gas turbines? Are we going to do it via wind power? Are we going to do it via nuclear power? All of those might be particular options. Or we want to build a new refining plant, so there's a number of options available to us about how we design the plant, how we get feedstock to it, how we export it. All of those are things that potentially we could do at those times. Once we've decided on the concept we're going to go with, then the detailed design work goes in place. We start to build it, and we'll start to modify that design. We'll start to modify what we've actually got in place, till we get to the point where we have, if you like, a fairly stable plant configuration, and then the challenge is to operate and maintain it throughout the lifetime of that facility before we either get to life extension to keep it operating for longer, or we get to decommissioning it. Now, at each of these phases, there are going to be different objectives from a risk management perspective, and a part of these are going to be dictated by how much information we actually have available to us. But at the beginning, we want to know what we're getting into. Do we actually want to be part of this business? Do we want to know what do we want to be in this particular country? Do we want to be in this particular area? Do we want to be in this particular product line? So what are the major issues? We can only deal with these as a very broad brush approach to start with, because we're limited amounts of information. But if we can make a decision, go, no go at that particular point, then we can get into concept evaluation. Do we choose this option over this option over this option? Do we do road transportation? Do we do rail transportation? Do we do air transportation? Do we build a pipeline? All of those are potential different options. They're going to have pluses and minuses. There's going to be different costs associated with it, but equally there are going to be different risk profiles associated with it. Now, at this time, we're still really only moving pieces of paper around, so we've got a large opportunity to do major risk reduction options at this time. Can we get rid of it? Can we just not handle a particular chemical? Can we just not do a particular thing? What are the pluses? What are the minuses associated with that? The end of that phase, there should be a decision as to, this is the concept we're going to go forward with, this is how we're going to go, this is how we're going to develop this particular asset, which takes us into the design, building and modification stage. Which hazards can we design out? We've sort of made an assumption by this point we're going to retain a certain amount of hazards within the organization, within the operation. So are there any further we can design, get rid of? If not, then all of these hazards we retain within the business, so we need to have in place barriers, layers of protection to make sure that those are managed. Going back to the previous module, and these are going to be in terms of people, processes, equipment. What do we need to have in place to manage these effectively? Is there anything that we can potentially do also that might make it easier to decommission this plant? I mean, we're no longer in the situation where we can just say, fine, we've finished producing with this plant, we'll just lock the gates and everybody goes home. We need increasingly to be able to return it back, to return the area back to its original state. So rather than trying to leaving it for the decommissioning team to work out how they're going to manage those hazards, there may be things that we can potentially do during the design phase. There may be options we can adopt during the design phase that's going to make it easier for those guys. It's going to make it easier and less hazardous to decommission it. So those, again, should be options in there considered during the detailed design phase, as well as, can we actually build this safely? If we're going to put in a series of construction cranes on the site, will we be able to manage those? Will they present, say, a risk to adjacent facilities, particularly if we're building a plant next door to another plant? So can we build it properly? And then when we've got to that, we've commissioned it, we've built it, we effectively are dealing, the plant operators and the plant maintainers are then left dealing with all of the hazards that the designers didn't manage to get rid of. So that becomes an ongoing risk management process, and this is also maybe where plant change, management of change comes into it as well. Those hazards, so we may introduce hazards, standards may change, processes may change, feedstocks may change. All of those things are going to affect the original design that we had, but we also need to maintain both process and personal safety issues during those phases. And at the end of it, then can we get it back? Can we get it back to its original condition, and can we do it safely during that phase? And that's a very quick run through the key issues that are going to address us at each of those times. And then each of those are going to have different ways of addressing them, which I'll come on to in later slides. Now, the basic rule of all of this, as I said in the previous module, is if we don't know what we're getting into and we don't know how we're managing it, then we're not going to be in a position to make an informed form of risk management process that allows us to identify the risks, allows us to assess those risks, and allows us to make a decision about the evaluation. When do we stop? How many controls do we need? Are those controls good enough? And how are we going to make sure that those controls... Now, taking those project schedules, again, exactly the same sort of rough line, looking at it at this point. Now, there's going to be a number of different drivers that occur during there. The more we get through the project, the more information we start to accumulate, and the better quality of information starts to accumulate. And so the overall project confidence starts to increase. The closer we get towards operating it, the more faith we've got in what we're doing and how it's actually going to function. So the more confident we are about all of this, the greater our willingness to spend money, particularly with regards to risk management. The more we understand, the better the appreciation of the risks, so the easier it is to get money released in place. Unfortunately, our ability to reduce risk is greatest at the earliest stage, because that's where we've got the greatest point about just, I suppose, the biggest risk control we've got is walking away from it. But at the very early stages, we can go down one particular concept path or another particular concept path. That gives us a huge, great ability to be able to influence how we manage those risks. So we've got, if you like, these competing risks, these competing drivers, that means that we don't want to spend the money until we've got greater certainty, but by the time we've got to greater certainty, it's possibly even going to cost us more money to make those changes at that point. So this has always sort of led us in the past to the facility, to the means that risk management always used to be left until the end, and that you used to finish up spending a lot of money in the operation and maintenance phase to possibly correct the mistakes that should have been done during the design phases. Over time, we've got a lot better at it. We started to put more money back into the earlier stages. We recognized that it makes far more sense to operationally manage those particular hazards. And hopefully this as a trend will continue, and that for the future we will start to do even more work in the earlier stages to start trying to define it. We can build upon our knowledge and our history of projects that have gone through in the past and be able to say, this is where we need to be, this is where we got it wrong last time. Can we, during concept, improve upon it and make it better for the future? Because that way, hopefully, we can make ourselves more efficient and more viable by doing more effective and more cost-effective risk management early on. So the sooner we understand the risks that we're getting into, the sooner we understand the magnitude of the problem we're getting into, the better we're able to predict how we need to go for the future. What's very, I suppose, important to me is that, again, we're back to making informed decisions. We're making a decision that's based around our ability technically be able to handle a project, commercially be able to handle a project, can we actually make money out of it, but also that we include risk management as part of that, that risk and asset integrity is